right, what's up, everybody? Welcome into A Bettor Morning presented by Rival Fantasy. I'm your host, the fantasy executive, Corey Parson. You already know how I get down. You know what I'm saying? League winner, no cap Corey, championship Corey. You know what I mean? Whatever you want to call me, fantasy executive. Good morning, everybody. How you feeling today? Coming up on the program today, a little bit later on, we'll get into some Rival Fantasy action. I keep cashing out over there. You need to be like me and cash out over there as well. I get that email. Congratulations, you've won. You need to be like me, so make sure you play on Rival Fantasy. Getting to some injury stuff, some waiver wire stuff. Obviously, big injury to discuss last night. We'll get into that in a second as Nick Chubb goes down. But last night, we were blessed with two Monday Night Football games, one between the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers, the NFC South matchup, one between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburg Steelers, an AFC North matchup. And I want to start with the game between the Saints and the Carolina Panthers. And, you know, I was real heavy, real big on, right? Well, first of all, let me tell you, the under cash, 39.5, the under cash, and New Orleans was laying 3. That pushed. The Carolina Panthers are going to lose every game by 3 this season, more than likely. They're always going to be like a 3-point underdog, and the game will always be lost by 3 points. Nothing really much in this game to really discuss. I mean, I think this game played out like how people figured this game would play out. But Olave was straight. He's solid. He's a top fantasy asset. Derek Carr is mid. The whole Saints is mid besides Olave, and they got some decent players on defense. You know who was below mid? The head coach of the Carolina Panthers, Frank Reich. If you have a problem protecting the quarterback, why are you sending 5 people into the route? Shouldn't somebody be left behind to help protect the quarterback? Because you can't scheme the offensive line, Frank Reich. Got to tell the truth, Toronto Dave. Frank Reich can't scheme the offensive line. And you see, I'm a big Bryce Young guy, and everybody knew I was a Bryce Young supporter. And I was a guy saying, hey, Bryce Young, rookie of the year. Bryce Young is going to be fine. Carolina's going to be in the mix to win the to win the NFC South. I forgot how terrible a head coach that Frank Reich could be. You're going to get this kid hurt, Frank Reich. You got to change your offensive line schemes and protections. Last night, Bryce Young, 22 of 33, a paltry 153 yards passing, under 5 yards an attempt, 1 touchdown, sacked 4 times. He also lost the fumble, so he turned the football over twice. Not a good game by Bryce Young. Bryce, listen, you got to play better too, son. Right? Let's not start getting into this habit of, oh, he's a young player. It's only a second game. Use the first pick of the draft. Play like the first pick of the draft. Now, understand you're hindered. I'm getting pretty fired up early in the morning. I understand that he's hindered because of Frank Reich and the protection schemes, but I still expect a young man to play better. Outside of that, though, good game to get the night started, decent, you know what I'm saying? Miles Sanders had a decent night. Cashed a couple Chuba Hubbard props on his unders. Adam Thielen led the night in targets, and he had a touchdown. Chris Olave was spectacular, 6 for 86, no touchdown, 11 targets. This kid, Rashid Shaheed, if he's on your waiver wire, you need to hop on him. Michael Thomas is healthy and getting it done as well. Now, the running leaves a lot to be determined with these guys, you know, Jamal Williams and Tony Jones and Taysom, whatever. A whole bunch of stiffs, if you ask me. You got to get Alvin Kamara back. So that was game number 1. I think that you see that the Saints, who are the Saints are 2-0, right? They've won their first 2 games. The Saints are the most fugazi 2-0 in NFL history. The Saints ain't good. They've played weaker opponents. When they get a chance to step up against somebody big, they're going to get the doors blown off. The Saints are not up there with the Niners, the Cowboys, and the Eagles. The Saints are I hate to keep picking on the Lions, but the Saints are like with the teams in their division and like the Packers and teams like that. That's where the Saints at. They down there with the Rams and the Cardinals. They're not legit NFC contenders. Don't let the 2-0 record fool you. Heather, pray for me, Heather, because it's 9:30 a.m. and Fantasy Executive is already warmed up Toronto Dave, say a prayer for me because fantasy executive already warmed up. And I think I'm getting ready to go nuclear. You know what I'm saying? Because last night, watching this matchup between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, and I specifically said to myself, it's 2 Monday night games on. I want to see my man Bryce Young, but I got a lot of season to see my guy Bryce Young. I'll probably go see him play later on this year. You know, the Panthers play not too far up the road from me, less than 2-hour travel. You know what I'm saying? To go see the Carolina Panthers. I want to start off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kenny Pickett. I'm a big Kenny Pickett guy. Didn't look good last night, right? 15 to 30, 222, but at least he was driving the football down the field. Shout out to George Pickens. For the first time in his career, George Pickens did something exciting in an actual football game, now on the practice field. So that's growth. That's development for George Pickens. Like, we all like to see, oh, George Pickens with the great catch. George Pickens sideline. It always happened in practice. Last night, George Pickens showed his talent in the game. Shout out to George Pickens. You can put him in your starting lineup and feel comfortable about it. You know what I'm saying? Kenny Pickett, decent, not great. Interception, turned the football over. Saw a great tweet last night about Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. We are at the point in Pittsburgh. Now, mind you, it's still early in Harris' career, where it's like Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, where your eyes, we're going to talk a lot about eyes in the next couple of minutes. Where your eyes, if you have eyes, right? If I see it, I got to say it. Fantasy executive eyes. If you have eyes, your eyes are saying, hey, Jaylen Warren is better than Najee Harris. Your eyes are not mistaking you. Your eyes are like your best friends, right? Your eyes are not going to tell you no lies. If you see it, you got to say it. Toronto Dave, my eyes clearly see Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren is better. Feel pretty good about that. Jaylen Warren should start popping up in starting lineups if he's going to get this kind of production. He runs the football more effectively, if you ask me, and he's much more explosive in the passing game. Harris is a 0 in the passing game. Really, the Pittsburgh Steelers passing attack is George Pickens and Jaylen Warren. That's it right there. Now, on the other side of the football, Amari Cooper, 10 targets. Amari Cooper is a beast. There's no denying him. You know what I'm saying? He is underrated asset. He's a good player. He's a professional. I'm a big supporter of Amari Cooper. Wish he was still a Dallas Cowboy. David Njoku, who I don't trust, caught all 4 of his targets for 48 yards. Right? Now, the big story of this game right here is the injury to Nick Chubb. And, you know, thoughts and prayers go out to Nick Chubb. I'm not the type of guy, I don't watch, like, bad injuries. Like, it's not for me. Like, when they was like ESPN is not going to replay the injury, I was like, you know what? I don't want to see it. If they're not going to play it, I for certain don't want to see it. I don't like, when Paul George got hurt, Joe Theismann, some of the great gruesome injuries, not great, but some of the gruesome injuries in sports history, my stomach can't handle it. But you know what's so funny, though? They say, okay, we're not going to show it. Then I open up social media and the first thing to pop up is the damn injury. So I have to scroll past that because I don't want to see that. My stomach can't handle it. The fantasy executive has a weaker stomach when it comes to injuries. But Nick Chubb is out. Nick Chubb is down. Nick Chubb is out. Nick Chubb, the Cleveland Browns' best player, will not be seen for the rest of the season. Nick Chubb is a fantastic running back. He's tore his knee up 3 times now. If Nick Chubb was never would have got injured, he could have been the greatest running back in the history of college football. That's the kind of running back Nick Chubb is. Go back and look at what Nick Chubb did at University of Georgia in a committee. Would have torn ACL at one point. But prayers to Nick Chubb. Hope he feels better. Hope he gets back out there. I'm a big fan and supporter of Nick Chubb. But Heather Klein, you've heard me say this before. When the best player on the team gets hurt or a player on the team gets hurt, the quarterback has to step up. I specifically wanted to watch the Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers because I wanted to put these same eyes right here These same eyes that see that Jalen Warren is better than Najee Harris, I want to put these same eyes on Deshaun Watson. I want to get a good look at Deshaun Watson. And guess what? I've made a decision. I've came to a conclusion. Deshaun Watson sucks. And I know nobody wants to hear that. You know what they say about the fantasy executive? I don't like black quarterbacks. They're going to be saying that again this time, right? Because if I see it, I got to say it. If these eyes see it, I got to say it. Deshaun Watson sucks. Oh, well, no. Fantasy executive, we haven't given Deshaun Watson enough time. Sure we have. He's had 2 full training camps, and he's played 8 games. 2 full training camps and played 8 games. What do y'all want? You want the guy to play in Braille? What do you mean we haven't seen enough yet? Yeah, we've seen plenty. We've seen turnovers. We've seen poor performances. A fumble last night. Turned the ball over last night. This guy can't do anything like he used to do. He used to be an electric, dynamic playmaker. Right now, he's Jacoby Brissett. He's Tyrod Taylor. My eyes are not deceiving me. Deshaun Watson sucks now. Have a homegirl from Houston text me last night. She goes, man, that game was fun. I said, listen, your boy sucks. Who? She goes, I go, Deshaun Watson. She goes, oh, no, he needs time. No, what do you mean he needs time? My eyes are not lying. My eyes don't deceive me. You can't say the player needs time when there's actually, listen, playing quarterback in the NFL is tangible. You can see the numbers. He's played in 8 games. Right? In those 8 games, he has 9 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. That's not good. That's not acceptable, right? His completion percentage is under 60. His yards per attempt is under 6. Let me repeat that. His completion percentage is under 60. His yards per attempt is under 6. That means he is completing less than 6 and 10 passes for people that's only 5 yards away from him. That's not an elite NFL quarterback. That's not $245 million in guaranteed money. That's Jacoby Brissett. That's Zach Wilson. That's Tyrod Taylor. Deshaun Watson don't have it no more. My eyes are not deceiving me with Deshaun Watson. We don't need to see it no more. It's over. It reminds me, I was watching Gil's Arena a couple of weeks ago. And Gilbert Arenas said when he had the gun incident in Washington, right? Suspension, all that, and the suspension happens. When he came back from the suspension, right? When Arenas came back from the suspension, he said the gun incident had affected him so bad, his game changed. He didn't want to leave the house. He was embarrassed to be outside in public. He would go in the house, draw the blinds, close the window, didn't want to be seen. Deshaun Watson is going through the same thing right now. The player is not mentally there anymore. The Cleveland Browns made a huge mistake giving this guy $245 million. It's not going to happen. Deshaun Watson, if he's your starting fantasy quarterback, go get Jordan Love. Go get a new one. Hell, go get Mac Jones. Mac Jones putting up numbers this year. But Deshaun Watson ain't it. Your eyes don't need to see no more Deshaun Watson. Your eyes ain't lying you after 8 games and two training camps. The guy is a backup quarterback now. He has the measurables of a backup quarterback. If you need a good backup, put Watson on your bench. You need a starter, you got to go get somebody else. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest. I hate to be hollering and yelling early in the morning. Thoughts on Dameon Pierce? Should I trade him for Mostert? If you can, I would do that. I like the way Mostert is running right now. You want to get your fantasy football questions answered, or you want to get a jump or a head start, or you want to get on top of the fantasy football game, you want to start a 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription, get all the Week 3 DFS content and picks for free, go to fantasyalarm.com/NFL and check their Thursday night football best bets and showdown slate strategies. Whatever you do, don't put Deshaun Watson nowhere near any of your lineups. He sucks. I got a reason with you people. If I see it, I got to say it. Better Boss is agreeing with my fantasy advice. Disagreeing with my fantasy advice, but I love it. But I just like the speed and the explosiveness that Mostert has in his game. Dameon Pierce is just a guy. as my buddy and good friend, John Hanson. I need to holler at John Hanson. I haven't talked to him. Does John Hanson still do the Fantasy Zone? I know, Heather. He's a big Justin Fields fan. We've had this conversation about him and Justin Fields before, and unfortunately he's wrong on Justin Fields as well. Waiver wire right quick. Excuse me. I had to get my telephone out right here. Sportstopia, Heather, we got a Sportstopia show coming up at 9:30, Heather? Because I may want a little extra time today.
We do.
Okay, so I do not have my extra time. I'm sorry. I got to get out the way for the good folks at Sportstopia. Waiver wire. Jerome Ford. If Jerome Ford's on the waiver wire, empty the clip. Jerome Ford, you saw how active he's going to be on the waiver wire. You saw how active he's going to be in that offense. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to hear that Nick Chubb is out for the year. You saw the cart ride. Nick Chubb is done. Unfortunately, I'm a Nick Chubb supporter. So Jerome Ford, top waiver priority, empty the clip. I think he's a guy that's going to stick all season long. And you see that Deshaun Watson averaged less than 6 yards an attempt. So Jerome Ford going to get a lot of catches. You know what I'm saying? Heather, please, Heather, I'm doing this show. Next, I got to give Bettor Boy some props, right? You know, I need to see if I see it, I got to say it. No cap, Corey. If Sky Moore is on your waiver wire, go pick him up. And I know Bettor Boy is a Sky Moore guy. I spent the offseason talking down everybody in that offense, not named Travis Kelce. You can get some Sky Moore in your life. Sky Moore is a good player. I'm rocking with Sky Moore. Rashid Shaheed, if he's on the waiver wire, go pick him up. Jaden Reed, Rashid Shaheed is a New Orleans Saints wide receiver. Jaden Reed is a wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. You can pick him up. Luke Musgrave, also you need tight end help. Luke Musgrave. Tank Dell, wide receiver in Houston. And Matt Breida. Here's the thing with Matt Breida. Like Barkley probably be out a month, right? And you go pick up Matt Breida as a plug and play. But Matt Breida is very pedestrian. You know what I'm saying? He's a very pedestrian back. You really don't have to worry too much about Matt Breida. You know what I'm saying? So there goes some things to keep an eye on for waiver wire. Now, right quick, because I want to get to the good people at Sportstopia on time. Injuries to keep an eye on this week: Joe Burrow and that calf, right? Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on Anthony Richardson and that concussion. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Keep an eye on both of them. Keep an eye on Devontae Adams and Jalen Waddle concussion. Calvin Ridley had that knee bruise, should be good to go. Hearing different reports on St. Brown, but keep an eye on St. Brown this week. If Josh Reynolds is on your waiver wire, please go pick him up. Keep an eye on Zay Jones, DK Metcalf, Odell, Logan Thomas had that concussion, Chase Edmonds, Darnell Mooney, and Salvin Ahmed. These are all These are all guys you need to keep an eye on the waiver wire this week. All right, Bettor Morning brought to you by the good folks at Rival Fantasy. Let's go ahead and share that screen, Heather, so I can give the people another winner. So their cash or register can be ringing like the fantasy executives. Rival Fantasy. This challenge this is called the challenges. This is basically very simple concept. Who will score more fantasy points? Jared Goff versus the Atlanta Falcons, or Daniel Jones on Thursday night versus San Francisco. Now, you may say that, this is easy. This is Jared Goff. But Daniel Jones is going to have to open it up to keep the Giants in the game, and Daniel Jones can give you rushing yards as well. But I would like a handicap if I was going to go with Daniel Jones. So I'll skip this challenge right here. Christian McCaffrey. Ooh, this is probably the two best players in fantasy football right here. Christian McCaffrey and Justin Jefferson. I'm going to go with Jeff because that game is going to be a shootout between the Vikings and the Chargers. And the Chargers will probably find a way to lose the game by 3 points like they always do. Oh, Brandon Staley. You next, brother. You next. You with that tongue lashing Deshaun Watson got this morning? You next. Don't worry. I ain't forgot about you, Brandon Staley. It's coming, Mr. 4th and 15. Like how my man Dion said, we coming. Who will score more fantasy points, Geno or Daniel Jones? I go Daniel Jones right here. Put $1, make it holler on Daniel Jones. There you go right there. Rival Fantasy Challenges game. Rival Fantasy, all-in-one fantasy sports platform. Make sure you get involved. Be like the fantasy executive and take all the money out of Rival Fantasy. Heather, we can go back full screen now. Thank you very much. Listen, if I have to come back on here next week and apologize to Deshaun Watson, I'm willing to do that. But if I see it, I got to say it. And this guy has the measurables of a backup quarterback. $245 million guaranteed. Could go down as the worst contract in the history of sports. Even worse than what Rodney Hampton did to the Mets. The ski mask way. Deshaun Ski Mask Watson. That's what his name should be. Anyway. For the lovely and talented Heather Klein, it's your boy, Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, a.k.a. No Cap Corey. Hopefully I'm in a better mood tomorrow. But please, 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 while I'm watching sports today, I don't want to hear, if I hear somebody says we got to see more from Deshaun Watson, I'm going to blow a gasket. But right now, I'm nice, I'm calm, I'm relaxed. It's time to head up. For Heather Klein, it's Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, wishing you a peaceful, blissful, and better morning.